We do have some people who have entered, so I don't want to take up any time beyond saying welcome, everyone. This session is probably the best session you're going to attend today
Oh, geez.
because it has Dr. Murphy and Dr. Acosta to tell you about some magic that they're doing in an online course with learning assistants. Okay,
Yes.
all yours.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, folks. My name is Dr. Kyle Murphy, and as Karen said, I'll be co-presenting today with Dr. Deanna Acosta. And we are going to be looking at our current project. And so we're kind of presenting you almost a raw preview of what we're working on currently, which is to try to enhance online learning in biochemistry through the use of learning assistants. Let me go to the next slide. And I don't know, Deanna, if you want to do the session agenda, and then I'll pick back up with
Yeah, that's fine. Hi, everyone. I am Deanna Acosta. So I oversee our learning assistant program. So Kyle and I got together to work on this project to see how learning assistants could help support students in his online learning environment. So for today, we'll briefly go over the learning goals for this session, give you a bit of a background on, the reasoning or, some of the research, I guess, that supports this study, as well as statement of the problem that we saw with looking at that research, and then we'll talk to you specifically about the course that we are studying, the biochemistry course, the structure and the history of the course, and then get you an introduction to the LA program, and then finally discuss the experimental design that we're working with and present you with some preliminary data that we have. There you go.
And so our session learning goal today, one of my goals is I run these sessions in person and online, as we'll see, but is how we are going to implement these learning assistants in an equitable way, um, so that we can have a equitable online environment compared to my concurrently running hybrid in person, as I like to call it, course. And so the secondary learning goal is how to actually design a study to follow up and evaluate the effectiveness of this LA implementation on student outcomes. So part of the background and driving force to me looking into this was that there is actually not a lot done on biochemistry and the use of LAs. But some things in the literature had my wheels starting to turn about what the predecessor, I guess, if you will, peer led team learning to what I was doing. And people out of Indiana found some really great data. I don't know if anybody in here is in the biological sciences or in chemistry and has followed this literature, but if you are, please, state so in the chat. And they had really good success with their PLTL program and actually launched it into a cyber PLTL program. And I was pleased to know that came through like a grassroots effort of their own students who really said we can do this also online, and it would be great for online students. And it turned out it very well was. The other thing that I read recently that started me to say, hey, there's really good data out there and a little bit for biochemistry, but not in the undergraduate realm, was based on a team based learning cohort. And it was really targeting health science students and doing a comparison between nursing students and nutrition students who had differential experience in this online versus traditional lecture cohort. And that made me start thinking, hey, there's some really valid data out there that is making me think this LA implementation would be really good for this increased performance within my course. And you can see their statistics in their team-based learning cohort scored 74% compared to 38% on these biochem exams. And that was astounding type of performance. So not a lot of literature, as I stated, is part of the problem that we're currently facing. But we do want to be able to study the impact of these learning assistants on biochemistry students in the virtual space. All right. And I think, oh, there we go. I heard the ding come up.
Yeah. So we just want to get a quick check of the audience that we're working with. So we put out a quick poll to check what modality you teach in, just to see where we all are.
Now it disappeared off my screen. I don't know if it disappeared off everybody else's.
It should be under polls, maybe, and then you should be able to click on it.
Ah, okay. If you can get into the poll, and you can use that poll, that would be great. If you're not shy and you can't get in the poll and you want to use a chat, feel free to use a chat as well. I do agree, Karen. Yes, equitable course across modalities is very important, as we've worked on previously, right?
I'm seeing a couple votes.
Oh, you must be able to see it
I
on
guess I could see it because I created it, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it must be user specific. I
So
thought
we
that
have,
would show.
yeah, based on the votes that we have so far, it's 50-50 hybrid only, and then multiple either in person, hybrid, and or online.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody would like to follow up, is anybody else in the life sciences? It's kind of curious. I
Put
know
that in
I've
the
been
chat.
recruiting. Yeah?
They could put that in the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, all right. Excellent, excellent. All right, and so we have a mixture. We have about a 50-50, half and half on the attendance, looks like, for a modality. What I wanted to do is give you guys a little bit of background about the course, so it's not confusing, I think, when I get into the few data slides that I have at the end. And I want to discuss the timeline of what I've been doing with this course since I came on full time at Rutgers, which was in 2012. So I took over this course called Introductory Biochemistry, and I've actually run it consistently from the day I was hired in 2012 up until the current day. And it runs quite often. It runs spring, fall, and summer. And so I got a lot of reps, let's just put it that way, with the course, sometimes multiple sessions. So in about 2013, I initially converted that course over to a hybrid course with the visions of, eventually embracing more and more technology, which brought me to a eventual fully online build. In 2015, it didn't take me long before I had some tools developed, and I said I would really like to offer this to students to be able to reach the most amount of students. And we talk about equity and being able to access, and that was something that drove me to have it fully online. Also, I used LA study groups, so I have had a little bit of LA participation in the course before. Due to a variety of reasons, I was not able to continue um, with that model too far. So I used it for about, I think, 3 semesters, if my memory serves me right. Now, I come up on running this course online, and I started slowly with only a spring session. But then I started to realize that more and more students would benefit from this. So I started running it in the summers. And now we are up to running 2 sections, so roughly 50 students in the fall, 50 students in the spring, and hundreds of students online in the summer. So our end number is really kicking up to be able to follow this data and actually bring us to current day where we can launch a pretty good study with healthy amount of end number. So I had also wanted to flip from more of a traditional style of lecture, and this is also based on student opinion reports, to be a little bit more of a flipped classroom, including active learning within the classroom. And I did this in 2024 and was going it on my own and realized how limited one person is versus a room of 170. And so I had approached Deanna and said, hey, I think it's due time that I incorporate LAs again and really support this model the way it should be. And that actually has taken full effect this current semester. So the talk that you guys are getting is literally live. It's what we are working on right now. So, as I said, the course and the nuts and bolts underneath the hood, I always believed in trying to create an equal access for either online or hybrid, or in person, as I like to call it. I've heard somebody say this today. One of the award winners mentioned, they strive to give everything to their online course that their in person course would teach and not to have any differences in between them. All right. And so when I look at that, we want to have pre recorded videos available to both. And I do. They're always been present ever since the first design was there. I use some online homeworks, courtesy of Pearson. They actually have some really, really good products for the biological sciences and chemistry, as well as self-designed Canvas quizzes and online Canvas exams. And I've switched to online exams across the board, even for an in-person course. It has some advantages for the students and actually for the faculty member both. So for office hours support, I usually use online office hours as well to try to reach as many students I can, allowing them to fit it into their busy schedules. But up to the current day, there has been one big difference. So for the past 2 semesters, when I've been running a flipped classroom, any in person, there has been no flipped classroom component for the online. So they've had office hours and discussion available, but no flipped classroom. All right.
And so this is where sort of the learning assistant program, the LA program, comes into play, because a large component of the learning assistant program, as you can see on this right hand side of the screen, is to kind of serve these students, they're undergraduate students that are trained to support student learning, and their goal is to sort of do exactly that, serve as sort of a liaison, as you can see, like between the instructor and student, but then also be there to facilitate student learning. And in the flipped classroom environment, the goal, right, is to have them when they are in those synchronous sessions together, either in the classroom or virtually, to really getting them together into groups and to support collaborative, active learning experiences. And this is based on an international model that was developed in 2001 at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And it is based on these three main elements, which include, right, that practice where the students are and the learning assistants are in the classroom with students facilitating learning, like I just explained. But that is supplemented by pedagogical training that they receive. So they do complete a pedagogy course where they are trained in a lot of it's a survey course, so a lot of the theory behind effective teaching and learning. And then they also have to participate in professional development workshops that expand upon some of those core concepts and to further support them when they are supporting students in the classroom. And then they're also supported by the amazing faculty like Kyle in their weekly planning sessions. And so we call these staff meetings where they meet with the faculty to discuss what they're going to talk about and do in the classroom. This makes sure that they are in alignment with what's happening on a weekly basis in the classroom. And so the way that um, Kyle's mentioned it, it's kind of helping. He meets with them to make sure that they are, if they're in the online session, they're doing what's happening within the hybrid model. So this is why this kind of works, yeah, with getting uh, the two types of courses and the modalities in alignment. And so just to kind of bring sort of the impact and you a better understanding of why the impact that has been shown of LA supported courses. So there's been several studies that demonstrated that students either report self-reporting that the LA's helped them learn, they appreciate the course material, they felt like they were able to engage with peers and the materials in the class. They felt and higher satisfaction overall with the course, and also increased satisfaction with the teaching of the course. Right, so these are all based on like course satisfaction surveys. But it really goes to show that LA, like students perceive the LAs as an additional support in the classroom. And there's also several studies that have demonstrated LA support in introductory STEM courses is associated with lower DFW rates. So not only do they feel that they're supported, they feel like they're part of this environment, this learning environment, and they feel overall satisfied with the course, but they're also performing better because of that near peer instructional support that's happening. And typically, the students that are supporting the course are students that had recently taken the course and done well. So they have gone through the experience of being in that course as well. So another quick poll that we have for y'all, if you could participate, is to just see, do in the audience, we're just trying to gauge: have you ever implemented learning assistants, supplemental instructors, or any other sort of embedded peer support in your course? That should go through now. There we go. And again, you can find the polls in like where under session where it says chat on the right hand side, it says polls, and that's where you can find the polls and then submit your response for that. Are you able to see it, Kyle, or no?
I am, and I just took our poll. I'm very proud
Oh,
of
okay.
myself.
Okay, I see some with other multiple types of some folks work with multiple types of embedded support. And then there's someone else who's worked with LAs. I'm assuming that's you, Kyle.
Yes, yes, I clicked the other one. That was me.
Awesome. All right.
Excellent, folks.
Yeah.
All right. And so I was going to say, there is something we changed for this spring. The slide might look familiar because it is. But the only difference that I have for data I'm about to show you is that this semester, spring 2025, we implemented something. If we've all been in Zoom or WebEx recently, I'm sure if we're at an online conference, right? We've all been in a meeting. And as our deans were actually using, I believe, Zoom with many breakout rooms for our first year of advising, it started making me thinking, hey, I've been in plenty of these. There's no reason that we can't employ LAs. And I had a conversation with Deanna. I said, hey, you know, can they do this? Can they do breakout rooms? Will we be able to get them in? And the answer was yes. And so, with a little bit of work with the Rutgers IT department, getting the students enough access but no grade access to the course, they are now running Zoom based, integrated into the LMS of Canvas sessions that mirror exactly what I'm doing in the hybrid in person session. It just happens to work out great that in the schedule of classes, my hybrid meeting happens to be in the beginning of the week. And we're putting all of the same paced Zoom meetings, either on the same day later in the day. And so I have a Tuesday 8:30 course, 8:30 in the morning. Many of the hybrid students aren't too pleased about that, but it works out great for the LA program. And then we have, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to launch these Zoom flipped classroom sessions, which are going over fairly well. And so we want to know a little bit about how they were going to be going. So part of our research question was, does this supplemental LA support impact student learning in that online environment? So as we talked about, I had flipped that classroom in fall and spring of 2024, but without LA support. And because we are analyzing this data and comparing to our current cohort, I can't compare total course grade because I don't have a total course grade yet for this spring. Unfortunately, I don't have even an exam 2 grade yet for this spring. Their exam falls after Rutgers spring break, which is currently this week. And so I analyze exam 1 grades to be used for comparison across these 3 different semesters. So remembering all online courses prior to spring 2025 lacked that flipped classroom. And upon analyzing the data, I'm presenting here you on the left spring 2024 data, in the middle fall 2024, and on the right spring 2025 with the 2 bar graphs. And the first one, spring 2024, is slightly above average of for the in person course than for the online course. And we see that trend on each of these semesters. The in person course average is outperforming the online course average, even in our current model. But one thing of note that I did see was a little bit of the lower end performers seem to be accentuated in the online section. So not only the averages were a little depressed and lower, but yet it was that the extent of some of the lower performing students, which I care deeply about, because those are usually the students that I can have the most impact on their lives and their success in the course and in their futures. And I said, wow, I have a difference in equality between these two. And that concerned me a little bit. And so I had always seen that. I think it's isolationist based, possibly. And I need to get them connected. So one way to get them connected is to have this program. Now, when you first look at it with the aggregate, it doesn't look like, things are going as well as it should be for spring 2025. So as a data-driven person, I said, well, you're looking at the aggregate. All right. And so when I look at those, I said, one thing is I could pull out that there are lower minimum grades in the online than in the in-person, and the averages are lower. So upon the examination of these, I actually wanted to look at the data as I started to parse it apart a little further. So in fall 2024, I looked at the attendance when people actually attended the flip, because they are not mandated to come to class. This is not considered a part of their grade. Back in fall, I didn't even have any extra credit offered, nothing. It was just, you came to the class like a traditional lecture would be. If you were in attendance, you were in attendance. If not, you weren't. But when I pulled apart the data for fall 2024, I was selling it to the students. And amazingly enough, I remember pulling apart this data and saying, it does matter if you attend. All right. And so on the axis going across here on the X, they had 3 sessions before they took exam 1. All 3 were flipped classroom sessions. So if they attended all 3, their average was actually the highest out of any grouping of students. And as we go through, if they attended 2 out of 3 or only 1 out of 3. And then I said, this is interesting. They had no attendance, they did well, but I said, those might be our self-motivated type students. And I said, if you have no attendance online, which they couldn't, right? Because they're online, the average was lower, 82.7. So I saw that trend. And now I could finally bring out students who attended are doing differentially better than students who didn't attend, and obviously students who didn't have access. So I said, all right, your flipped classroom model is viable. It looks decent. The N numbers are quite large, and I understand that there doesn't seem to be that big of a difference in minimum here when I look apart from each other, or maximum for that area. So it's only based on average in here. As you can see, the differential somewhere around almost a 4-point average. So students attended 3 sessions did better than students who were fully online with no offering. That was one thing that I could look at as initial data until we dig through more. So then I wanted to look at our current semester and say, what do we see when we look at our current semester for that exam 1? Now that we have LA support. If you remember the first data slide, I said there was no difference. I'm going to go back a few just to refresh our memory. I didn't see a difference. In fact, I saw those low performers and I saw a decrease in average just as I had all over. And I said, oh, that's not good, right? But then I decided to take this stuff apart again. And I took it apart into students who had attended on exam 1, all right, versus students who had not attended. Now, these are the online students only. So I'm kind of taking that one bar graph apart. And one thing I know that we have to work on, and I spoke with Deanna, I have to work on, is advertising to the students. The N number was low, but I took all the students who attended and I graphed their average. And I did not say if they attended 1, 2, or 3. because there are all varying amounts. And with such a low N number, I actually aggregated all those students. And I noticed something I think we can all see that's appreciable. That average is a lot higher, and we seem to really be lacking the low performers that we have in the online section who never attended. And I mean, this should speak volumes to the model. And I believe it really does. And it's a great start. I know our N number is a little bit low. This N number is quite high. And we'd like to reverse that. We'd like to see some of these people join the attended group and hopefully see those grades go up. Now, we have exam 2 and 3 yet to look at with that. But the averages are quite a vast bit different as well. All right. And so it's a really interesting look, and I would love to have an effect on the low performers and bring those low performers up to a high 60, which is a respectable grade, and get them away from these 50s and the 40s area that we have quite a bit of a population down there. And so that was the observation here. You know, students who attended the LA sessions, they performed better and they had a lot higher minimum scores, if that's a great way to say it. I don't know, but that's what the observation was there. And so I'm going to review the first few future directions, and then I'm going to let Deanna talk about some of the surveys that we might employ. She's a little more knowledgeable on those. So I will continue to analyze data from each exam in the course currently in 2025. And then I could maybe do some cross exam comparisons between, say, the semester just previous to this exam by exam, and then compare them, as well as parse apart the data, just like you saw in the online area, attending versus not attending. I am going to push this data out there to the students so that they are aware about, people who attended these sessions. They did well, just state it like that, and let them look at the graph for themselves and say, wow, I want to be on, that bar graph, not this bar graph. And maybe we'll get more of those online students to kind of even out my data N number a little bit. So we also may normalize this data if we could do this in our study. This is one of our big goals, and I think both of us got very excited about speaking about this last week, is look at previous data. So Intro to Biochemistry has a prerequisite chain that goes through general chemistry and through organic chemistry. Now, students can take different paths to get to my course. They could take a general chemistry and a elementary organic chemistry, or a form of general chemistry and then maybe a more traditional Orgo 1, and then to get into the course. We also see a lot of different majors within the course. So we could look at the performance. We hope to be able to do that of the students when they came in, and then see if there's a good impact that correlates to LA participation, and maybe seeing an increase in the general students' performance. I'll turn it over to Deanna to talk about some of the surveys.
Yeah, so another aspect, and as I mentioned before, with the impact that has been seen in previous studies with the implementation of learning assistants in courses, is to, improve their perception, their sense of belonging, and how they feel within the course itself. And so we thought it would be a good idea to kind of tease apart maybe how the LAs are impacting the students, and if there's any other impact outside of grades that we could determine. And so we wanted to look at their sense of belonging. And so we do have some surveys that we send out to students to measure that. Um, and then we also wanted to look at, um, send another survey to determine their motivation for participating in those optional LA sessions, to see if, what is driving them to motivate, and if like there's a difference between potentially making it mandatory or having some incentive in there that could help them um, get drive more students and maybe drive that end up into participating in those sessions, as they are optional right now. And then finally, we wanted to do positive learning environment. There's a standard instrument that we could use to implement, to see if there was a perceived increase in a positive learning environment with the students that attend those sessions, as opposed to those who potentially are in the online only version and do not attend those synchronous sessions. And so overall, we're hoping that this kind of helps give a better picture to see where the impact is from the LAs and from the students participating in those sessions.
All right. And let me go forward the slide. And obviously, these are some of our references. So if I don't know if anybody is interested in some of the stuff, I think we went right through, right, in the order that we were referring to them.
Yes, they should be.
And I believe, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, they'll have access to the PowerPoint or no, or just the video. Oh, we might not have Karen here right now. Oh, there she is.
Um, access to the PowerPoint. You want to give everybody the PowerPoint? Is that what
I
you
didn't know if they would have, or I'm just going to pause on the screen if they only have access to the video. I'll leave it up here for a little while.
No, they do not have the PowerPoint unless you have a shareable link.
Ah, no, I don't think we do. It's in box right now. If
Okay.
anybody's interested in it, though, we could share out. If you want, you could. I'll drop my name in the chat or my email in the chat. You know my name. I need the email part. And those at Rutgers know it's just first and last name at rutgers.edu should get you to just about anybody. And most importantly, does anybody have questions or even shared experiences that you'd like to share about your course? Any parallels or similar things? We're all ears for things that other people have been doing and sharing.
Or any feedback also, since this is a works in progress and we're living this live right now.
Most definitely. We got 4 people here, but it's always hard in a virtual environment. You never know if somebody's, walked away or not walked away. Yes, the
Yeah.
sense of belonging is huge. And it's unfortunate you don't know about it until sometimes you get the student opinion report later. And then I'll tell you, I don't feel like I really, like that wasn't included in here. And I go, you don't know how to reach them if they don't say they don't feel it. But
Mhm.
surveys are a great way.
Yeah, to check in with them, especially if you put it in the mid-semester.
hmm I don't know if we
Do we
have
have
any.
feedback? Yeah, so we do actually also send surveys out to the learning assistants to check in with them on the same metrics on sense of belonging, their perception of their experiences in the program in the classroom. And so we could use that too to see what they say. That Kyle will know because we don't have that data until the end of the semester from the learning assistants. But have they given you any feedback, Kyle, so far on their experiences, the learning
Um,
assistants?
I think they're okay. This group is actually a little bit of a quiet group, and I'm getting them to come forward and take ownership a lot more now. But it's still like that reluctant, um, for lack of a better term, I always call it like the scared kitten moment where they just look at you and they're frozen, and then they want to put like their paw into the water and they go, "Oh, okay, the water didn't bite me." So some of them are really stepping forward and saying, "Yeah, I want to do that." So hopefully, I'm creating an environment that is slowly getting them to open up and be vulnerable. It's my goal
Yeah,
is, ownership and vulnerability for them to realize it's okay not to know and it's okay to make a mistake. You know.
that's a hard thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I think it's harder to when I have that group of the n numbers up around that. I always say the limit is 3. When the n number gets up around 5, they look around the room and wonder who's judging them.
Mm,
But if they can get to that safety group of 2 or 3, then they tend to be a little more vulnerable, I've noticed.
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
With their LAs, you mean?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah. 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 It's true. You want to be in a smaller group to share, feel more
yep.
comfortable sharing. Anything else? Any other thoughts, questions, feedback?
Yeah, I'm sorry we ended a little bit early. I tried to talk slowly, but I probably talked fast. My apologies.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So LAs could, on top of like running synchronous online sessions, um, just to deliver flip, that sort of like flip model where they work on active learning activities and apply what they're learning through the readings. LAs can also serve as like a model student in discussion forums, maybe making some posts or kind of demonstrating, what a strong post looks like, or strong, actually more effectively strong responses and replies to the post look like. Um, so they can also support with even asking clarifying questions and like kind of keeping like those discussion forums, which are a lot of times central to online learning environments, to keep them kind of active and engaging. So they could support with that. And I've seen um, other courses kind of structure them in that regard.
That's one area which, when I think I first started, it was very vibrant, was discussion forums, and it was odd. I heard somebody else mention it today in the session where they said they had to evolve and everything used to be discussion forum based, and now they're feeling like they're moving towards other avenues because the students just aren't vibrant in the
With it.
discussions. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Virginia left a comment. Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's really, yeah, to get that social learning in the online environment. I think that's like the ultimate goal
Yeah.
here.
And to bring their social learning into the environment where they can get the most impact because, as we all know, they go to Reddit and they want to have their social environment outside of the learning environment. And as an educator, that drives me crazy, right? Because then I can't reach them. So that,
Or you can get direct feedback also, right, on what
yeah,
what they're struggling with and where they
yep,
are. Yeah. So through the LAs, you could get that kind of feedback and
hmm,
information.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And thank you, Virginia. Anybody else have questions or comments? Karen's great point. Yeah, keeping them in that community, right?
Yeah.
One day, I hope learning will not be a feared environment for a student, but I think it really just is. And that's one of my life's missions is to make it a really comfortable place to want to come to when you want to know something instead of feeling like you're judged.
That's a hard
Mhm, mhm.
that's a hard thing to undo when they're coming to us as adults already.
Yeah, yep, yep. It is.
I think that's another thing. It's like the that Karen brought up about like valuable interactions that are happening, and I think like sharing out, that impact that you saw could be helpful, with pulling more students in, like, with a great impact, or um you know just to say like, hey, like, this could be helpful. I think giving them that value would be a good thing to get more students to participate in those online sessions.
Yeah. You're giving me so many ideas. I think we need a sociology professor. Mm. Because some of the things that don't work in fall and spring work really well when the students don't know each other in the summer. Because I
Mm,
get a variety of students from different places. It could be a local New Jersey school that's coming here or really far away. And then the discussion threads are vibrant. And my
mm.
offer of, would you like to be involved in a study group? Why don't you exchange emails? All of a sudden, I see information flying back and forth. But yet, when they're in a comfortable social environment, I think they don't want to extend that into the classroom during fall and spring.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I wish
Yeah.
I knew why that was. That puzzles me. But
Yeah. And Karen mentioned about having LAs do professional development teaching online. We could do that. Yeah, that's something that we could extend to, especially if we start to see more LAs supporting learning in the online environment.
I would love that, Karen. Do we have something? pre-made and available that would target a pedagogy
That
for
the
them?
students
Mhm,
yeah, I don't know. So through the LA program, through the learning centers, not directly that I could think of. Um, but I'm not sure if um through Karen, I don't know. Do you all offer something that students or could use or access?
We don't have anything that's
Not that for students. Yeah.
yeah, directed towards students, but, I mean, I do think there's a lot of different topics that might be valuable, even to help them feel comfortable in their role, in
mhm,
that
mhm.
online environment, and feel more empowered to lead and,
That's the
inspire
key.
students to work together in mhm,
Mhm, and I heard that I think more from the online students is they don't know how to handle a room when they're not in a room, when they're in the online environment. And they said, "Well, we were online," and they just said, "I need to know this." I go, "Well, it's no different than when you're in person." I go, "Dissuade them and tell them this," you know? But to them, when they come on in the online environment, I guess they don't know how to be spontaneous, creative, and charismatic online.
Yeah.
That might be
mm,
one thing they need.
and
Yeah.
they might have some even ideas for improving the online instruction. Like, you'd be
Mhm.
surprised, with them, being immersed, and maybe they can see where students might be missing points. They might, be able to give you
Yeah.
feedback
Well,
as
Mhm.
it
well.
amazed me that
So
Indiana study was 2 undergrads who were involved in the PLTL program, who said, "This has to go online," and we could see it, and that was is an amazing type thing, and it feels like with the technology they did, it blew me away for 2013. It was, quite an endeavor, so that was a nice paper, but, yeah, I think you're right, because of things like that, I think your our students would have invaluable insight, which makes me think we should be inviting them to, this session each year and maybe having a small session based on students and online learning. That'd be neat, having a panel.
Yeah, that would
well,
be
I'm thinking they might have more buy-in to creating better online learning experiences.
Mhm.
I think they feel that in face-to-face learning. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but again, some of it might be rooted in, if they have some professional development, then they're thinking, "Oh, there's more potential, more possibilities than I realized going into this."
Mhm.
And then they might feel they could contribute to what you do.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because our LAs and other like in in-person classes definitely help with creating activities and like
Mhm.
improving how the students are being supported. And so that's definitely another option for them in the online environment. Yeah, they've also supported like with, if there's like papers in the course or, different things and giving students feedback with that or trying to support them with, projects and like giving feedback along the way on projects and just supporting in that way too. So, hmm yeah. Are you getting more ideas, Kyle?
I'm holding them back. I'm percolating with so many ideas.
When Kyle and I get together,
Mhm.
you can just watch out.
Mhm.
But yeah, he does have good ideas.
I need more hours in a day. That's what I realized, and then I would like to use every single hour to execute all the plans I have.
If only. And then we
Mhm.
would say that again even more.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions.
I don't see anything
Still
either.
have a few people here, but thank you guys. I was
Yeah.
really excited to hear about this.
Yes. Well, thank you all for attending and participating and
I think
yeah.
you're making online courses so much better.
Yeah, and please don't forget to come to, Will Pagan's, closing remarks.
Yes,
Yeah.
closing remarks are on the main stage in just a few minutes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Indeed. Thank you, everybody.